Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock on the dot. Not in my drop top, but I'm here. I'm really excited to actually talk about the topic, overcoming imposter syndrome, which me opening with an Usher quote, lyric song is pretty much me to the T. So I know there were several people that wanted to be a part of this conversation. So thank you all for joining. If you're joining live, if you're watching after the fact, thanks for joining and watching. I kind of just wanted to be able to have an open forum. I don't know if it'll be 15 minutes long or 10 minutes long or however many questions happen to come up, but just to have like an open dialogue, a real live discussion, quite literally, about imposter syndrome. So with being a female Hispanic engineer, Brianne C. Martin, the people engineer, it brings up so many different avenues of feeling like an imposter. So as a diversity and STEM advocate, again, as the people engineer, I focus on sharing my personal story as what I've been through, being raised by a single mother, kind of a little backstory. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I've been on all kinds of different industries, from working for the Army doing helicopter repairs to working for an international aerospace company to traveling the world. And I had never even stepped foot outside of the United States, traveling over 100,000 miles in a year. And just being to different countries, to, losing my job, getting laid off, to starting my own consulting firm. And again, just kind of breaking down these barriers or trailing into areas and or realms I didn't belong. Statistics say I should have never been successful at or even tried to attempt. So with the world of diversity and STEM, it just kind of is a reality. And so for the majority of my followers or page likers, whether you follow me on Instagram or here on Facebook, or I've just given you tips and tricks or books to read or suggestions or advice, I kind of just, again, wanted to have a real discussion about imposter syndrome, because we all kind of face it. We all kind of somewhat ask questions about it, but we very rarely direct it head on. So this is for you if you've ever gone to an interview. Well, let's take a few steps back. This is for you if you've ever been like, man, it would be my dream job to travel the world. And you've been like, well, no one would ever pay me to travel the world. Or if you're a soon-to-be engineer or studying to be an engineer and you're saying like, man, it'd be so cool if I could design this or be responsible for that or oversee this many projects or this amount of money type of project, a magnitude, responsibility, so on and so forth, but you just felt like, well, I'm not there yet, or I kind of need to earn my stripes, or, no one would dare, again, give me that opportunity to be responsible over A, B, C, or D. And a lot of times we cut ourselves short because we may be ready to take that on, and or maybe that's just the opportunity for us to challenge ourselves. But so many times we get into our own heads that we kind of stop those dreams from coming true before it even have the opportunity, because we're too busy telling ourselves the story. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough skills. Or, no, they would never choose me, or I'm just not right for it. When in doubt, it really is just our fear of actually owning what we do know and owning up to what we don't. So in the reality of engineering, in the world of engineering, let's just say even in the world of professional adulting, once you take on a professional role, the reality of you knowing everything to be successful in that role is like zero. If you knew everything you needed to know to be successful in that role, you would be hired to be a manager or like a leader of that group versus actually fulfilling that role. Because a lot of it is learning and being eager to learn and having the right attitude, which is funny because I had a conversation today with a gentleman who's actually retired from Raytheon and did all these amazing things as a principal mechanical engineer. And he even told me it's funny that we're so worried about fitting the 100% of the criteria, when in reality, people that are actually hiring, like the HR managers, the hiring managers, they actually say they only look for 10% of whether or not you actually are qualified for the job. And then another 10% is whether or not you can actually do the job, like physically get it done. They can see, implementation. And then the other 80% is just how well do you fit in the team? Do you have an eager, attitude? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to ask questions? And so many of these soon-to-be engineers, or even those that are studying in the STEM fields, you guys are just very questioning yourself. Well, I'm not really good at calculus, so I'm afraid I'm going to go on an interview and they're going to ask me to proof this, quadratic equation. Well, in reality, it doesn't work that way. I'll even give you my own experience. In a recent interview I got, which I got the job, they actually asked me, I told them I had done, experiments and proving data of, corrosion and how and why it corroded and whether or not we used the right fastener and the right coating. And, I said this was a part of my internship, years ago. And they were like, oh, so if we were to tell you this screw with this, application, you would know which screw and which coating to use. And I kind of chuckled and I was like, well, quite honestly, that's why I carry a notebook everywhere I go, because I have the worst memory. Like, that's just me. I write it down, give me a reference manual, tell me where to go find it, what book, what you're looking for, what usage, and I'll be able to go look it up for you. But I'm definitely not the type of person to like spew it off the top of my head. Like, that's just not me. That's not my jam. I don't do that. And I openly said that in an interview, and everyone kind of chuckled and they were like, yeah, like realistically, there are a few amount of people who could actually do that. And the majority would probably be more in like material science than they would, again, like a mechanical engineer or manufacturing application. So anyway, again, just like being open and honest about it. Again, like now I'm not setting myself up to be expected to spew out, again, like what fastener and what type of coating when and where. I didn't lie. And then even more so, now they understand, oh, Brianna's the type of person to always have a notebook and write things down. So it's just kind of setting this expectation of reality. This is the type of person I am. This is how I work. I acknowledge that I don't know everything, that I will have to use a reference manual. And again, just being realistic. And people actually thoroughly would appreciate and enjoy people who are authentic versus trying to lie to their face. Like, people can tell when you're being real with them when they're not. And so even that, just having the authenticity, like knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, but also being real with your weaknesses. So not doing this whole, oh, it's perfectionism, I just have to make everything perfect. Like, that's BS. And, anyone that's hiring you or listening to you say all of that understands and knows it. So in reality, read any self-help book or listen to any podcast on self-help. What they actually would tell you is if you're trying to say it's perfectionism or that you tend to not start things because you're overanalyzing everything, it's a reality check for yourself. Is it's actually fear, that you're just too afraid to even start because you're too afraid to fail. And I mean, read any book, again, read any self-help, self-development, professionalism, leadership book. It's all a part of failing. Like, we have to be able to fail to learn. You can't gain experience if you never start the experiment. Like, how do you know what the results are going to be? Like, you don't. So in reality, we have to be able to put ourselves out there ahead of, what we're ready for, take on challenges, and again, kind of just have questions. That's the reality of it. So again, even in the world of professionalism, taking on a job that you're 100% ready for and qualified for, you're still not going to have the answers for everything. And that's what asking questions is all about. So, good segue. For anyone that has a question, please leave it in the comments. I can do them live. If there's anything in particular or specific question or topic or instance or something that you dealt with, please let me know. Please share. It doesn't have to specifically be a question, but I just definitely want to have a conversation. Again, an open dialogue for anyone that has felt it, has hurt a friend, asking for a friend, whatever. I just kind of wanted to have this, again, open dialogue opportunity for those that are logging on after the fact. Please feel free to leave a comment. I'll still follow up. Again, I obviously get little notifications of anyone that comments. I think it's just kind of the reality. So as I wait for comments to come in, I just actually wanted to kind of share a cool resource that I recently found. So I'm all about reading and self-development and self-help books, all that kind of stuff, because I continually want to be able to better myself, to better serve my community, my family, essentially, again, just have a better experience of life. And so in doing so, I'm all about reading. Again, there's just people that have experienced life. I'm only 27. There are people that have lived on this, earth so many more years than me. So if I can learn from their experiences or their wisdom and kind of just gain and soak up all this knowledge, obviously it'll put me ahead. So in turn, I actually got a book recently that is called The Mask of Masculinity. And I had posted on my Instagram. And again, I just feel like it was kind of fate that it happened because, again, as I'm waiting for the comments, please feel free to post your questions. He talks about like just the different types of masks that we wear. So even I'm just reading off like the agenda of the contents page, right? Table of contents. One is the stoic mask, the athlete mask, the material mask, the sexual mask, the aggressive mask, the joker mask, the invincible mask, the know-it-all mask, and the alpha mask. And what's crazy is he wrote this particularly to like talk about how men feel the need, kind of like the machismo thing, right? Like you got to be the star athlete. You have to be aggressive. You have to be the go-getter. You have to be the successful one. And it's obviously like for women too, but it's more to like tend to, again, like that machismo mindset of, you know, you got to be a protector and you got to be the top notch and you got to be manly and, you know, suck it up and don't cry, men don't cry kind of thing. But in reality, again, it's talking about like really developing yourself. And I brought up that book because it talks a lot about, again, like the masks that we feel we need to wear. And in reality, again, we feel so compartmentalized by society. We've been so socialized to have this expectation of, I'm an engineer, I need to have all the answers. Like, I'm the problem solver, that's me. When in reality, you know, I go around speaking to kids all the time, and I was like, how many of you guys feel like you just have a billion thoughts at once, and you can't even like just sit in a room and be quiet because there's like so much going on? And they all laugh and raise their hand. It's like, I can't even focus to like, you know, read the same page, much less, you know, solve a problem. And I kind of laughed and I said, well, that would make you a great engineer. The fact that you have so much going on and you can consider so many different opportunities in so many different ways and creative thinking. And again, you're thinking about a billion things at once, and then you're able to kind of start focusing and taking on a piece at a time and based off your experience and asking questions and, you know, just through trial and error. Because again, in reality, just life is trial and error, right? We don't learn without trying. So even that, I'm kind of like not having any comments or questions right now. So I'll kind of just keep going on a roll until I get those. So please, again, don't be afraid. Post some comments. If you like legit have a question, that's kind of what I'm here for. I don't just get on a live feed to rant and talk. I could do that all myself. So yeah, I got a question. Thank you, Genesis. What is the best approach to ask for help, or when you don't know, aren't sure about doing something for a future supervisor or coworker? So that's a good question. If you're thinking about like how to ask for help, first and foremost is just, again, kind of like acknowledge the knowledge gap that you either have or don't have. Again, just to kind of get the table going, right? So like have your resources available and identified. So the more definitive you are about what you do and what you don't know, it's a lot easier to say like, hey, I understand, you know, A through D, but once I start kind of getting, you know, E through F and G kind of gets a little fuzzy for me. So it starts clarifying and you can be a little bit more precise with what you're actually asking for help for. And then the second part, I guess, or when you don't know, aren't sure about doing something for a future coworker or supervisor. So I guess with that, are you asking particularly like you're not sure whether or not they want you to go a certain route, or they're not being very clear, precise? If you can help identify, I guess, which side of that, I'll jump back into that part. But again, just like starting from a basis and then being able to kind of start asking questions from there. And then by all means, like definitely say, hey, I totally didn't understand what you asked of me. I do that all the time. Like my boss will be like, hey, you got this, right? And I'll be like, just to clarify, like you're asking me to do this, this, and this, correct? Not this, this, and this. Or if it is this, this, and this, please tell me how to do this. Don't know how to do that. This is contacting this person, correct? And then we're good with this, right? We had that conversation. So a lot of times I'll even just kind of paraphrase for myself, send in an email so it's documented, and then they can tell whether or not I understand or what parts I didn't get. And then most of the time he'll literally walk over and be like, okay, so based off of your email, and we'll print it off and even like highlight and like take notes off of that. Because again, I have to be honest. They're going to say, hey, Brianne, so per the email, you said you got it, right? And I'll be like, oh, no, just kidding. Did not happen. So again, just being open and honest about it is always good and upfront. So I recently went to dinner with a friend of mine and his dad. Sorry, next comment question. His dad is an engineer, and they brought up a lot of talk about programming languages, computers, 401ks, corporate culture, etc. Basically, a lot of stuff I can't really speak to my parents about. I couldn't help but feel a little behind in my technical knowledge and industry in general. Have you ever felt this way about around your colleagues, and how did you get over that? Oh yeah, so definitely about that 401k thing, the programming and languages, computers. I'll just tell y'all, like, I have a mad respect for technology, for any and everything that like has a power button, because to me that's like black magic. I mean, I took circuits, I took PLCs, programmable logic controllers, yeah, that. And it's really cool and it's a lot of fun. I understand it, but like programming and coding, like that's not for me. So even like, you know, cryptocurrency, and again, like anything technical now is just like, and that's cool because I can like be amazed and like fascinated by it all. But to answer your question, yes, all the time, which I think is really cool for us to like acknowledge that, you know, again, we're not going to know everything, right? There's actually a quote that says like, the more you learn, the more you acknowledge or you realize what you don't know. And that's a reality. I mean, like for anyone, you know, watching, majority are, you know, engineers, think of when you first took thermodynamics, right? I was like, holy crap, like we can calculate, you know, like how long it'll take my coffee to cool down to room temperature. And you're already like mind's blown with just thermo. Then you took heat transfer and I was like, oh my God. Then you took like thermal system design and you're like, holy crap. So again, it's just kind of like once you bite off a little piece of it, there's a whole nother universe on top of that. So even more so, it happens all the time, especially with like 401ks. I think things too limited to our surroundings, right? So how we were raised, the environments in which we were raised in. So even having that discussion about 401ks, even like investments, that's something like I haven't even touched yet. Again, a 401k is a type of investment, but like playing in the stock market and, you know, what that means and what that looks like, I couldn't even begin to tell you, right? Like it's cool and there's numbers and stuff everywhere, but you know, understanding like the basic economics, sure, I got that. But again, how to invest your money, where it works, how the stock market's, all that stuff, it's really kind of crazy to me. And so by all means, again, I'm just very realistic, you know, the reality is like I was raised by a single mom and sometimes she had to work 2 jobs to make sure that we had food on the table. Granted, my mom worked hard and like we never went without anything, but there are plenty of families who, you know, they would like talk about, you know, sometimes they would have a mattress and that was the only thing they had to sleep on for the night. They didn't even have a frame. So again, being realistic with your surroundings and acknowledging yourself. So if there's something like, if you're not interested in programming languages, just that might be your jam. And maybe sometimes, again, talking about like corporate culture, like you haven't been exposed to that. So then again, take it as an opportunity to learn, ask questions. And again, you being able to actually ask and show interest in others will get a lot more, how do I say it? Oh, again, authenticity. I was like authenticity points, right? They'll understand that like you're acknowledging and you're being self-aware that that's something that you can't talk about. Again, versus you BSing and be like, oh yeah, I know when I'm at the water cooler, blah, 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 blah. Because again, they understand that you're not in that situation. And the more we try to fake it and again, put a mask on, the more people they catch you. Like you're not being real, you're not being authentic. But if you're genuinely interested and you want to learn, that's an opportunity for you to ask, particularly if it's people that you feel comfortable with, or again, that you know they understand that you may not have been in that situation. Something for me too, and I'll say this because it's almost, again, in a whole nother realm, is like, I don't speak Spanish. I can understand, but when people start speaking a whole nother language, which in your case, if people are talking about stuff that you can't converse in, I will like graciously be like, hey, would y'all mind like switching to English so I can talk? And or being like, hey, would y'all mind slowing down a bit? Like my Spanish isn't that great, so I want to be able to hear what you're saying and, you know, just take in all the great information or the part of the conversation. When everyone laughs and I'll be like, hey, would you mind explaining? So again, there's an opportunity for you to kind of have a sense of humor, to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you please enlighten me? Or could you give me like the spark notes on that and like help me so I can understand or be a part of that conversation? Because a lot of times too is, again, people tend to try to like one up one another. But if you're in, again, self-aware, your own self-confidence, I'll say, you know, then that's an opportunity for you to learn. And then people, again, 1, know you're authentic. 2, know that you're taking an interest in what they're doing, what their experiences are. So again, kind of like the biggest thing I always tell people, even for networking, is just like, let other people talk about themselves. The more questions you ask, the more engaged, and they're like, oh, that person really made me feel comfortable. That person listened to my side of it or wanted to hear what I had to say. So by all means, again, if that's your question of, you know, how do you really ask or join a conversation that you really have no idea about, don't be afraid to ask, hey, I don't know what that means. Like, would you mind telling me? Or sorry if this is goofy, or please excuse my ignorance, so on and so forth. And a lot of times, again, people will actually appreciate the fact that you're honest and open, because then now, again, you're giving them, I want to say almost flattering them, right? You're giving them an opportunity to educate you or to bring you in. So now they're actually giving you something, and in return, you can kind of give your feedback or insight, or, hey, I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. So again, you're kind of creating this more genuine interaction with people versus this like facade of, oh, well, look how much money I have, or, oh, I know all these things. So again, it's just kind of being more realistic, being authentic, because then that's when you're really creating those relationships versus, again, kind of having this facade of, you know, pretending you know things that you don't, and or just being realistic of where you come from, because then maybe people don't think, again, about the differences of where they were raised, or to think that, you know, parents didn't have 401ks. I know particularly like through SHIP, right, we talk about 401ks. A lot of times too is I've had discussions with professionals all the time, sorry, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, about like how we have conversations within our own offices that they don't even think, you know, like, oh, these kids, and they have it so hard with homework, you know, they have computers and everything's online, and we have to bring it to their attention. You understand the majority, you know, of these kids don't even have access to internet, you know, much less a computer. And so it's just kind of mind-boggling to a lot of these people that have had these opportunities that don't understand that, you know, there's a certain percentage of us that, one, we're the first in our family to go to college, much less, you know, attempt to get an internship, much less reach a certain tax bracket because this is the first time we've ever gotten a paycheck that large, or so on and so forth. So again, it's an opportunity for us to educate, but also we have to be able to humble ourselves. So for many of our entry-level engineers or even soon-to-be engineers, is having an engineering degree is literally about you being a trained learner. You know, having the opportunity to learn, to listen, to pay attention to resources around you. And people are the utmost, to me, like limitless resource. So pay attention, ask questions, by all means, you know, just invest in those people and see what resources or even support information they can give you. So the specific about Genesis was going a certain route. So I would say, again, even just like whether or not it's an action or an idea, or whether or not they're trying to verify what's going on, again, just ask, be very specific, specify the things that you know or what you think you understand. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, actually, that's not what I meant, but that's a really good point. So another way to kind of follow up with that, again, just to kind of be open and transparent about it all. So thanks for clarifying, Genesis. Andrea, again, thank you. You're quite welcome. Another question, have you ever messed something up at work? If so, how did you fix it? Oh, yeah, all the time. So as I was mentioning, you have to be willing to fail. And sorry, I like have this big smile because I think of like all the billions of times I've just like really messed up or put my foot in my mouth. And the reality is, again, like I've learned from it. One, I'll know like never to do that again. Or two, like, okay, like that approach didn't work. Now to try another way. And so for anyone watching, I don't know if y'all have heard, but you know, like Edison, he said, I didn't find out, you know, like a million ways, you know, that I failed. I found a million ways not to make a light bulb. So in reality, again, you kind of learn from your experiences. We all grow. Again, failure is a part of the whole process. So yeah, definitely, I've messed up several times at work, particularly, again, just because I'm a very transparent person. I'm very open. I'm very kind of like there. So either it's a negative experience, it's a positive experience, but like usually have an initial feeling about, you know, me, my presence, what it is. I'm either too much or like, you don't agree with me, and that's okay. But even learning, again, like how to process that. Are people receptive? If you don't like my personality, maybe I need to send you an email, or maybe I need to call you and make those experiences shorter. But again, being able to accept myself is first and foremost, because that's me, like that's Brianne. I'm not going to pretend or be a fake person around other people. I will adjust per my customers. But again, like there's a certain authenticity to me that, again, I learn to grow. I learn to adapt. But again, I don't ever want to be fake because, again, you can tell when people are like, hey, yeah, nice to meet you. Like, I'd rather just, hey, how's it going? Hope you have a great day. I know you don't like me, but I still want to wave at you. Like, that's kind of my style. And how did I fix it? Again, there's all kinds of different ways. A lot of times is one, I personally cannot stand to have conflict. So I don't like, if people have a problem with me, like just tell me, like, I just don't like you, or you upset me because this and this, like, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Like, I don't care. I just need to know. And then either if I can fix it, great. If I can't, all right, like, good to know. Again, I'm not one to like kind of try to bear hard feelings. I don't want to be mad. I've like, you know, dealt with so much crap and drama in my life. Like, nah, it is what it is. I wish you the best, many blessings. I hope God sends you wonderful things in your life. You know, if it's not meant to be, whether friends or work or relationship or, again, whatever, customer, I don't care. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So again, if there's something that, particularly if it's like you're my boss or a coworker and like if we're just not vibing, like usually I'll just call like a one-on-one call, or I'll like bring in breakfast, or I'll just do some like random compliment and be like, hey dude, so what's up? Or like, hey lady, I noticed you were kind of pissed off at me. Did I do something wrong? Can you tell me, you know, what I did or how I can fix it? Or even like, hey, is there some, like a lot of times even with my boss, like for my 30, 60, 90 day, and even now like every few months, I'll just be like, hey, so tell me, am I doing a good job? Or is there something I can do better? Like, what are the things that I'm doing that you like? And what are the things that you kind of don't like, or that it's getting on your nerves, that you wish I didn't do, so I can know that, put that on your radar that you don't like it, and then I can do it less, right? Because I always want to make sure that I'm really making my boss look good. I want to make sure like he trusts me and knows that I'm getting stuff done, but also that I'm reporting in a way that he feels, is how he communicates or what he feels is necessary. So by all means, definitely like do what you can, but again, being transparent, pretending like it doesn't exist or putting it under the rug or doing that. No, I'm fine. Like that doesn't work. Again, be proactive, be an adult, be professional about it. And again, just treat people with respect. So by all means, I would say take chances, take risks. Know that you may make some people uncomfortable because again, a lot of times people are dealing with this mask and this facade and this fakeness. So a lot of times when you're being authentic, it scares a lot of people. They don't know what to do with it. They're not used to it. But again, by all means, like overcoming imposter syndrome in general is being true to yourself and learning even what yourself is, because then maybe even taking that kind of step and trying to have a one-on-one conversation with someone is not you. You're not comfortable, but you'll never know until you try. And maybe you trying to do that resolution will solve all kinds of problems. You're like, man, that was a lot easier than I thought. Like I was just too afraid to ever talk to someone or try to, have a discussion with them or ask them how they felt. So a lot of times too is just listening will do you wonders. I'm telling you, a lot of times is we just feel we have so much to say, but actually listening, we learn so much more. And there's another quote, I think it's that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So anyway, next question. I hope that answers your question. Please let me know if there's any other particular details or follow-up questions. And anyone else, feel free to ask. Again, this is just kind of open for everybody. I'll keep going until we have no more questions. Okay, the next question, Genesis. Going into my first internship, I'm not sure how my supervisor will be. What should I do if I get a not so great supervisor, one that isn't like a leader and more just like paper pusher or like, here, do this? Oh yeah, okay, so I'll tell you, one of my last internships, after having great internships, while I was in school, I had a manager like that, and it was very difficult for me because I was trying to build these like one-on-one relationships, like, hey, I want you to like me, and I want you to like invest in me, and I want to like be on your team, I want you to be my coach. And it was, honestly, she wanted like nothing to do with me. She's like, I don't care, do your work, like get out of my face, get out of my office. And so I was kind of craving for this, again, like mentorship and coaching and like, hey, give me feedback. So essentially I kind of had to find my feedback elsewhere. And so again, if you don't have your, let's just say, get an opportunity with your direct report or the person you're directly reporting to, find it in your customers. And so I'll say that in a roundabout way, because essentially it's when you start out as an entry-level engineer or entry-level professional, you're not going to start out like as an account manager. So you're not dealing with like people getting your product. But if you think about it, what you're delivering, whether it be designs or processes or tooling or whatever you're delivering as an engineer, think about who's receiving it. So again, whether it's designs, an assembly line, other engineers, you're like doing a piece of a product before it gets to somebody else. Think about like what they're thinking of. And so go ask them like, hey, I sent over this design. What did you think of it? Like, just give me some feedback. And so a lot of times too, is it can just something be as simple as your design, but now you're having that opportunity to build a relationship, because then now they're thinking, oh, you know what? This person actually cares what I think, the type of work that they're giving me. And I'm telling you, very few people take the opportunity to actually listen to others or ask. Again, there's so many businesses out there in the world, and I'll even choose the business side, where they're just like, here, I have this product, buy it. Here, it's this, proven, blah, 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 blah. They don't take the time to actually ask the people, hey, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? So again, I opened this with the first like 10 minutes of, this is what my experience is with the imposter syndrome. Let me know if you have any questions. And the latter half of this has been all answering questions, because again, like, who am I to just sit up here and talk and not actually pay attention to the people I want to engage with? I want to answer your questions. So again, by all means, if you don't have a supervisor or a leader who's actively encouraging you or mentoring you or giving you advice, again, go find it yourself. You are the only person looking out for you. You're the only person who is invested in your own personal development, achievement, and success. So don't leave it to the hands of somebody who doesn't care. Go find it elsewhere. Find it within your SHIP mentorship. Ask some professionals, hey, would you personally mentor me? and have that one-on-one opportunity. And again, even that, if you can have someone within your company. So it's for me personally, I had to go actually outside of my department. I literally found random people throughout the plant and was just like, hey, you seem like you know what you're doing. Let me know how you feel. And every now and then I'd run into a meeting with them and I would host a meeting for them, or again, I would provide a deliverable for their group or one of their engineers or something else. And then in turn, I was able to already have that conversation because now I'm eager to learn. They know that I want to be able to develop and invest in myself and get better for the company, for again, my customers, whatever I was delivering. So the fact that I was asking questions, hey, give me feedback. Hey, let me know, like put it on a range of 1 to 5. Could I have done better? Because then again, now you're hungry for feedback. And again, a lot of people don't even take the time to ask. They're too much complaining about, well, so-and-so said it was horrible. And so, well, did you ask why? Like, well, so-and-so just doesn't like anything I do. Well, why? Like, what is it? Is there anything tangible that you can work on, that you can fix? Again, and it's just being a problem solver in a very personal way versus a very technical way. So by all means, that's a really great question. Definitely a lot of times people, or the majority, anytime anybody quits their job, they quit their manager or their boss. Very few people quit their job. People want to be able to have a deliverable. People want to be proud and own something. So whenever you're dealing with a manager that's not investing in you or isn't a good fit, that's a lot of the times the problem. So again, the majority of problems are communication or people problems, not really actual job problems. So by all means, that was a great question. Thanks. Any other questions? I feel like, again, we're getting somewhere a lot. I know, again, it kind of started with overcoming imposter syndrome, but a lot of it, again, has to do with like people problems and being your true, authentic self. And even that, I mean, like, we're all pretty young. We have a lot of time and development to, do and kind of embark in. So we're going to continue to develop and learn and grow. And so by all means, I also have another book, another suggestion. I get asked a lot because I love reading. And just so y'all all know, I'll be totally honest. I actually hadn't read in a while because or I couldn't read books before because yes, I have anxiety and I can't focus and I read the same page a billion times. So I started doing audio booking because I was stuck in traffic and commuting to and from work. But there's books, again, like the one I mentioned, The Mask of Masculinity. There's also stuff like this, like Tool of Titans. And this is literally just the tactics, routines, and habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. And so again, literally this is all interviews and the best tips and tricks and all this advice. And so whether it be a live feed, I'll obviously do this every week and just bring up random topics. By the way, feel free to let me know if there's any particular topics y'all would like to know or hear or whatever. I essentially started these live feeds because I was getting asked so many questions and it was the same questions over and over again. And I'm just very limited with time with starting my business. And again, commuting back and forth to work. And I work I wake up at 4 in the morning and I leave for work by 5:30 and I leave work at anywhere from 4 in the afternoon to 8 o'clock at night. So by the time I get home and I handle, my ship leadership stuff and I do my personal brand and then I work on my business, it just becomes very limited with time. So I was I'm just going to do a live feed, ask your questions live, let me know. I'll record them, put them on YouTube later because I want to be able to help as many people as I can, but I'm just very limited with resources. So please hit up the comment section. Let me know if you have any questions or any other topics that you guys would like to see or do or hear. By all means, this is what I'm here for. That's what I love doing. So anyway, yes, great. Next question. So I'm not too familiar about any career changes you have made, but what different roles have you taken? What made you feel like you needed change? That was a really great one. And yes, go buy it on Amazon. It's really great. So my career change, and I actually probably should have made a map. I have, in presentation mode, I'm very visual. So it's this whole crazy back and forth thing. I'll go a little bit of a rundown. So I started, I graduated high school in 2008 and I started college, obviously fall 2008. Started Marquette University, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm originally from South Texas. I wanted adventure. I knew in my heart I needed adventure and something changed, new, different. So I took off, right? I'm 1,000 miles away from home. So then my freshman year, I was amazed and just blown away. Shout out Marquette University. I love you. You're responsible for the engineer and the person I am today. But our focus at Marquette was all about be the change, right? Or be the difference. And so even in my entry-level engineering classes, they were talking about like how we, like our decisions, our implementations, everything focused in engineering was going to impact the world in some bigger way. And so I was always kind of thinking, man, well, like, I know I'm not too good at this whole school thing because math was already struggling for me in high school. I'm going to need experience. Like I'm a hands-on learner. Like I know I learn better. I learn from people. I enjoy people. This whole like reading a book and trying to get it out of a book concept thing is like not my best bet. So I was like, I need to get internships. So long story short, I jump in my freshman year, get an internship, which is a civil engineering internship. Shout out to civil engineers. Don't know how y'all do it, but I graded streets for a whole summer, drove around with one of the first little tablets and like a work truck and graded streets. Learn how to grade streets, learn about right-of-way process, blah, 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 blah. Freshman engineering internship, right? Then my sophomore year, I had an opportunity to work for the United States Army doing helicopter repairs. No, I was not in the Army. I was a civilian. I worked as an intern, as an engineering technician, climbed into helicopters, figured out what was corroding, why I was corroding, did beam analysis, learned about accelerometers, blah, there you go, accelerometers, about the vibrations and what, you know, removed what fasteners and what rivets and why, how it all went wrong. What was really cool is Marquette actually had an introduction to NX6, which was our 3D modeling system. And I was one of the only interns as a sophomore that had 3D modeling experience. So I got put on this really cool project where I got to do 3D modeling of really old Sikorsky drawings that the Army was like, well, we don't have 3D models for it and we need visualizations for it. So here, have at it. So then I kind of jumped into 3D modeling. So then I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I get to actually design stuff, and I can't draw to save my life. Like, y'all, I have a hard time drawing stick figures. So the fact that I could like 3D model and like make it turn and move and dynamic and then add a mesh and, you know, do all kinds of analysis was just like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I'm going to be a design engineer. This is like great. So then I did another internship through the Army. And again, that was a very good mix, if you will, because it was like some design work, but it was mostly hands-on. I wore work boots, safety glasses. I was climbing in the birds. I was, you know, again, understanding that I was working for the war fighter. I was creating standard of processes and documentation. So again, it was just like a huge hodgepodge of all kinds of different engineering. And I found my mentor, shout out Cheryl, you know, who was just absolutely amazing. So it was a really cool, great opportunity. I did 2 internships in a row for them. So I was getting kind of long. Then I went to design engineering intern, designing glass line pressure vessels. I did that for about 1.5 years, and I learned SolidWorks. So again, 3D modeling. I did a lot of AutoCAD drawings there. And then that kind of, again, after like maybe 8 months, I was like, I don't know if I want to sit at a desk all day and just like click a mouse. As much as I love the idea of design and I love designing stuff, I just felt like a part of my soul was dying. So when you feel like a part of your soul is dying, that's kind of a cue that you, again, learn your strengths. What do you enjoy doing? What like gives you life? Because as you've probably heard too, is a quote, is, you know, like find something that you're passionate about and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So again, like find something that you really enjoy, even if it's stuff to my ship students, right, that are doing like Noche de Ciencias, if you enjoy presenting or if you enjoy traveling or you enjoy like setting up events and planning and, you know, putting things where they belong, or even like delegating tasks, like that's major program management. Or if you enjoy, again, presenting or talking to people or helping them understand, you enjoy teaching people, again, there's a whole nother. Or if you enjoy being a leader, you enjoy getting the best out of people and, you know, how you can get the most out of them. That's total management. So again, by all means, there's so many different things you can go into, but if you start kind of getting out of focus what your strengths are, what you enjoy doing, it's a lot easier to start pinpointing, okay, this may be able to do my next jump. You can kind of start sketching it out. And so by all means, career changes do not have to be a ladder. The majority of career changes now are kind of like a jungle gym, because a lot of times you can jump from side or you can go underneath, you know, the current role, or maybe even sometimes pay scales, right? No one wants to take a pay demotion, if you will. But a lot of times it's an opportunity to learn. And so then once you have that experience, it can kind of skyrocket you up to another. So to that point, my last internship, I worked as a tooling engineer intern, my super senior year. And I was like super technical. And I was just like, I just want to learn, again, like thermoforming and, you know, how it all works and the plastic side of stuff. Because again, it was just kind of like crazy to me. Like, I don't know how things are made. It doesn't make sense to me, but I love manufacturing and I'm obsessed with how things are made and the whole 9 yards. So continuing on, After as a tooling engineering intern, I got hired on full-time as a tooling engineer, served as a tooling engineer for a first year. And then I was kind of like, I kind of saw the opportunity through this international aerospace company that I could kind of create my own positions. And again, throughout having a mentor or lack of mentor, I was like, I kind of just started reaching out to different departments and different groups. And the more I learned about everyone else, I was like, man, this could be a lot more systemization. There could be a lot more coherency here. And I want to be able to help mesh all of that together. Because again, a lot of times it was just this person didn't know that this person was doing this or making these decisions because of blah, 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 blah. And all I would do is call a meeting and be like, hey, so-and-so, like Jim, you need to talk to Kara because y'all could help each other out. And so essentially that's where even the people engineer came from, is I was just literally invested in people and I wanted to help make everyone else's job better. And if I could make their day, I wanted to make their day. And so whatever role I was in, I ended up just becoming the people engineer. And again, I know it was getting long-winded, but until I get another question, I'm going to keep talking about this. So please put another question in. I'll answer. More than happy to. Anything in particular or any other topic, by all means. I'll be wrapping up soon. But yeah, so essentially after tooling engineer, I jumped to liaison engineering, which is essentially firefighting, answering all kinds of calls for the assembly line. And if anywhere went wrong and we could not ship, it was my job to go through the entire process of the entire plant, everyone present, and figure out what we missed, how it broke, what went wrong, and then fix it and make sure it never happened again. Then I actually wanted to go into the marketing and sales because I want to be a customer. I wanted to travel. I wanted to have people interaction. I wanted to solve the problems with exact customers that had the problems. Then it was actually around the same time that they were actually trying to reinvent that position. And it was called the customer account manager. So I was actually the first customer account manager for this group in the marketing and sales division. And I oversaw Africa, Middle East, Southwest Asia, and India. I got to travel, literally, again, had never even had a passport. And then within the first year, traveled over 100,000 miles. And it was beautiful, wonderful. But again, you kind of get an itch of I want to grow more. I want to learn more. And again, I was able to create this rotational program within 3.5 years. And it makes perfect sense. Again, other companies have rotational programs. I created my own because I kind of saw, again, kind of where I wanted to go. And I knew what kind of experience I needed to get there. How did I request traveling for work? Yeah, so I kind of answered that. But essentially, they had this position of the marketing and sales group. And anything that deals with customers, a lot of times you have to travel. You have to entertain. You have to be able, again, to give presentations. You have to be able to talk to people. And then even that, to know the healthy of how much you tell them. And then, kind of how much you kind of have to respect the company and the processes. But also, have the trust and earn the trust within the customer and the process of what you're doing, how you're doing. So how did I request travel for work? For me, it was actually a requirement. So a lot of times they'll have travel expected up to 20% or up to 50%. And so if you're interested in traveling, a lot of times, one, when you're researching a company, is actually look up the company and see if they're international, if they're just local, if they're statewide, or even nationwide. The more you kind of find out, then you've got that opportunity. Oh, if I'm going to get my foot in the door in Georgia, there's an opportunity for me to go to their Brazil plant or whatever. But then you have that opportunity to even ask during your interview. That's something I've always asked. Hey, I enjoy traveling. I want to travel. Is there any opportunity to travel? And a lot of times they'll say, well, not this job, but the last person that was here, or one of our PMs actually, jumped onto the sales and marketing group or whatever. And so you can always kind of try to create, if that's something you're interested in. Even look at jobs, that you travel or ask around. Again, I was a customer account manager. Those people travel a lot. So if you're interested in that, look up customer account, again, manager positions, job postings, see what the requirements are. A lot of times too is it's expected once you get into, again, a customer service rep or role. So it's really cool, a lot of fun. Again, I thoroughly enjoy it, but I'm hardcore a people person. I love traveling. It was a really cool experience, a lot of fun. I definitely enjoy it. And I can answer more specific. Feel free to send me a message here on this page. And again, I can definitely go into detail. So if there's any other questions, now's the time to ask. I will thank you all so much for joining. I know I kind of went all around different places, but particularly overall, to wrap it up, overcoming imposter syndrome is essentially being real with yourself, being authentic. And a lot of times it's scary and it's kind of not natural because very few of us have been taught to actually review ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses, our personalities, how we actually prefer to work. Even if we care to work, right? Sometimes we're not even realistic with ourselves. Today's just my off day. But again, just being honest with yourself. and then being able to be authentic and expose that as well to the rest of the world. So by all means, again, if you're watching this after the fact, please still leave a comment. I'll definitely be more than happy to answer it after the fact. Again, if you guys have any more questions or ideas or even particular things you had questions on, please send a direct message or even comment here what you'd like to be the next topic. Again, I'll do these every Tuesday. Again, I've been getting questions on questions about all kinds of different stuff. So again, just to wrap up, I really enjoy doing this, sharing, having the opportunity to, again, just kind of set aside an hour to answer any questions that anyone may have. And again, kind of get it out to the masses, because I know plenty of people have these questions dealing with similar stuff. So again, by all means, thank you all so much for joining. Again, my name is Brianne C. Martin, aka the People Engineer. More than happy to help in any way I can. Again, please feel free to like, send comments, send questions my way. That's what I'm here for. Hope you all have a wonderful night. Thanks so much for watching.